Perennially? What's the perennial? What's the version of perennial that's week? I guess just weekly. Boy, that was hard.
Hello and welcome to Lexitecture, a podcast about word origins and histories. My name is Ryan, and in each episode my friend Amy and I bring a new pair of words to share their stories with each other and you. You can find our past episodes and the occasional blog post on our website at lexitecture.com. Follow along with us on Twitter and Facebook at Lexitecture, and if you really like what we do, you can support the show at patreon.com/lexitecture.
Today's episode, Oxter Lozenge.
I suppose we should say Happy New Year, shouldn't we?
Should say Happy New Year. Yeah.
That is a thing.
It's weird. Happy New Year. And Merry Christmas.
Happy New goddamn year. I wouldn't go that far. You know my feelings on this matter.
I'm familiar with your opinions on the times.
The times. Yeah, all of those. Fuck them. Fuck all those times.
All of the times.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Right. So, there's a small matter that I would like to clear up with you first.
Okay.
Dear listener, this is I'm about to have a conversation with Ryan about Doctor Who. And this has a greater resonance these days because Ryan loves Doctor Who.
I do.
Knows everything about it and is a bit of a geek about Doctor Who. You'll be hugely surprised to hear. And I have never watched it. At least I had never watched it until the middle of December, which, as Ryan pointed out, was after the last episode that we recorded. So this is the first time that we've actually had a conversation together, a real life listening conversation. What is the word I'm looking for? Audio conversation, since I started watching Doctor Who. So yeah. I am now on to my third Doctor.
Nice.
Who I didn't expect to like at all, and I like him a lot. So yeah. My apologies for the prejudgment of Matt Smith Doctor, but he's good. I like him.
He is good.
I think what I'm about to say might amount to Doctor Who heresy.
Oh.
But
okay.
Is it just me who's fucking sick of the Daleks?
No.
Like, get another enemy, man. You're as old as time itself, you know? Surely you've pissed off more people than just the Daleks.
Oh, and it does expand a little bit as, yeah.
And like, so I'm on Doctor 3, and so far, Eccleston Doctor defeated them at least once. Tennant Doctor, twice, 3 times?
Oh, many times, yeah.
And Matt Smith is, I haven't finished watching the episode yet because time, but it's called Victory of the Daleks. And part of me is like, I'm idly hoping that perhaps they do just win and that's the end of the Doctor and the Earth gets destroyed. Yeah. How can Doctor Who have turned me into a curmudgeon, Ryan, when it's essentially about delight? It's
a whimsical 60-year romp is what it is.
It's making me angry. Just get another, and I get the iconic status of the Dalek. I've been, hilariously enough, as a child, we went to the Behind the Sofa exhibition in London, which was a brilliant, I think it's still there, a brilliant exhibition of all things Doctor Who. And this was the point when I'd only ever seen Sylvester McCoy Doctor. So, I understand that they were terrifying and that they hold such a huge, they're a cornerstone of Doctor Who fandom and lore and all that stuff. Yeah. But also, just defeat them or don't, defeat them or accept that you can't defeat them. Move on and do something else. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I'm well aware of how you feel about spoilers, so I'm going to tread carefully. But
yeah, true story.
I have good news and bad news for you.
Well, I think, I also try not to spoil TV shows that I'm in the process of watching, but right now, when I turn on iPlayer, which is where I watch Doctor Who, the first thing I see is Jodie Whittaker and John Bishop, you know, the current incarnation of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly sure that while I'm flicking through to find the series and the episode that I'm on, I've seen the Daleks with Jodie Whittaker. So I was a bit like, sigh, fucking defeat them, oh my God. But yeah, they're very, you know, they're hardy little fuckers, the Daleks.
They are.
Really are. And they've been completely destroyed, completely. No way they can come back this time, completely destroyed about 6 times.
Yes. So far in only your 3.
Yeah, in my meager, like I'm not even, I don't even think I'm past halfway, you know, like not even close. Yeah.
No.
So yeah, it's the one where the Daleks, Winston Churchill calls the Doctor to go and help him, and it turns out that the Daleks have inveigled their way into World War II. That's the one I'm on, but I haven't finished watching it yet because frankly I got annoyed with the presence of the Daleks once again.
Yeah, I think in Matt Smith's run they do branch out a little bit more as far as who the villains are and which villains they bring back, but yeah, there are so many villains from the classic Who era.
Yeah, and it's cool when they bring a villain back, you know, like even I, with my meager knowledge of the canon, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a thing from, like, you know, the Cybermen. I'd never seen the Cybermen before in an episode, but I knew that the Cybermen were an oldie-timey, brought back for nostalgia purposes. This is pretty cool. The fans will like this, you know, and it's good. It's cool when that happens, and I like it. And I think like the whole joke about Daleks, the mightiest enemy that the world has ever faced, but they can't go upstairs. And you know, they dealt with that immediately as soon as they popped up in the New Who. That was dealt with, and it was done really well, and it was funny. You know, it was like tongue in cheek, and good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am a little bit Dalek fatigued.
That's fair. You have probably, I'm gonna say, the best Dalek related episode coming up in Matt Smith's run.
Right. Okay.
But they're in every single Doctor's run.
I mean, I'd like the best Dalek episode to be the one where he actually destroys them. You know, like.
Well, I have bad news and good news for you.
So much promise of extermination, so little extermination.
The only spoiler I'm going to give you is that every time I say I have bad news and good news for you, the bad news is the Daleks never go away.
Never, ever. Yeah. Fucking cockroaches of the alien world.
They are.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you have the Suntarans, and I think the Ice Warriors show back up in Matt Smith's run. And
I liked the little fat babies. They were good.
Yeah, the adipose, that was a cool thing.
Yeah, and the Slitheen were awesome. They were great baddies.
Yeah.
I mean, never ever pass up a chance to appreciate the work of Annette Badland, but also just great baddies.
Yeah.
She is she plays one of the Slitheen, and she's the barmaid in Ted Lasso.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's
her. She's a fantastic actress. She pops up every now and again and in the weirdest places, and she's always great.
But just makes it better, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, that's Doctor Who ran over. So yeah. I'm extremely excited that you're getting into it. And while I was in my personal isolation, I was like, I'm gonna go back and also watch these. So I went through the rest of Tennant's run, and I started Matt Smith's, and then it was like, it reminded me, because I haven't rewatched it in forever, except for like the episodes that I'm showing people who are watching it for the first time. Like if I'm somewhere or in some situation where like my sisters come up and they're like, you made that sound so sinister, Ryan. You made it sound like you were part of some sort of like crazy Doctor Who torture club where you Clockwork Orange people's eyelids apart and force them to ingest.
We keep them moisturized with artificial tears. It's not inhumane.
Yeah.
But the top, like the Doctor dances, and
That was a great
only
episode.
child. That one. That 2-parter was phenomenal. Midnight, Blink.
Blink
the
was
big
really
episodes.
good. There are so many. The other thing I was not aware of is how many British actors have been in an episode of Doctor Who and then gone on to have absolutely stellar transatlantic careers. Like Tom Ellis, Gemma Chan, Karen Gillan, Carrie Mulligan. It was Blink that reminded me of that. And in every case, pretty much, you look back to IMDb and you're like, oh, they'd done not that much stuff prior to that.
Yeah.
And now they are, being paid millions in a syndicated American TV show, or they are, being nominated for Oscars or whatever. It's pretty cool.
And I like how there's the one episode where it features one extremely minor and one supporting role, 2 people that will then go on to have like opening credits roles in subsequent years and regenerations of the show.
Also, I completely missed. I was very annoyed with myself because I would have felt very smug and satisfied had it occurred to me. Again, possible spoiler. Hopefully not too spoilery. But the episode where Georgia Moffat appears.
Yes.
And of course, Georgia Moffat then became Georgia Tennant. She's married to David Tennant. That's great. But what I didn't realise is that she's Peter Davidson's daughter.
Yeah. So she was
like,
the Doctor's daughter.
Like, it actually tells you that in the episode title.
Yeah, because she's the daughter of the new Doctor, but the actor is also the daughter of a doctor, and she's married to the Doctor, and they have a girl, so that's the actual Doctor's daughter again, and the Doctor's granddaughter, and both Doctor's granddaughters, and my brain hurts.
Yeah, I feel like that is quite brain hurty. I just about remember Davidson Doctor. Almost, but not.
He was the one that had the lapel celery.
Lapellery.
Lapellery. Oh, I can't believe I let that slip by. That's embarrassing. I'm off my game.
Well, it's just been January. We've all been off our game. Where even is the game? I feel like I need one of those like climbing frames to get back on it. The sort of things that they have to put next to showers in hospitals.
Yeah. Yes.
Get me one of those and I might get back on the game. It's not on the game. No. Jesus Christ. Stop.
It is weird to think, like, it's funny because it's only been a couple of months.
Sex work is work.
That's right. Don't you forget it.
Oh, man.
Like, Wordle wasn't a thing the last time we did
I know.
these sessions. And now Wordle was so, like, somebody made literal millions of dollars off of it, and now there's almost literally millions of variations out there.
Yeah.
And
so between us, we've in a little group chat, we've been regularly sharing Wordle and Sweardle because we're children.
Yes.
And then Loodle. Sweardle and Loodle have kind of fallen off a little bit. Like, Loodle uses Urban Dictionary, which means a lot of the rude words are just ridiculous words that nobody's heard of and nobody uses, as far as I'm concerned. Sweardle, you only get 4 tries. I don't feel that satisfied by Sweardle. And sometimes the words are a bit sus as well. But Quordle, I'm very much enjoying, which is 4 Wordles at once. And Nerdle. I was so anti-Nerdle. My husband is a maths teacher. He showed me Nerdle, which is basically Wordle with numbers and operators. And I was vehemently opposed to this as a notion. And then I played it, and it's really good.
Yeah, like I was angry at it existing.
Yeah.
Like, I was just mad that it existed. And then I was angry at it while I was playing it. And then I solved it. And it turns out that Nerdle might actually be digital heroin, because then I immediately wanted another one.
Immediately. And I like the idea that, like, the guy, Josh, I've forgotten his name. want to say Wordle, but that would be far too much of a hilarious coincidence.
That'd be amazing.
In fact. The guy who invented Wordle, he deliberately wanted it to be one word a day, one puzzle a day.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, I'm pretty sure he works in sort of, he says he's an artist, product manager and engineer, and he looks at, he says, I enjoy building unique products that focus on human interaction. And that's why Wordle's good. It's not good because it's a cool little word game. I mean, it is a cool little word game, but also we're talking about it right now. Other people are talking about it right now. You know, it's cool. And you get one, and then you have to stop.
And everyone gets the same one, and for the most part, nobody spoils it.
He is called Josh Wardle, which is delightfully...
that is awesome.
Delightfully satisfying. The very rich man, Josh Wardle, and good for him. Why not?
Yes, good for him indeed.
Yeah, and then Global. I haven't tried Global yet, but you guys have been doing Global.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's funny when Matt shared it on that chat, and I was like, oh yeah, I've done things like this on Sporkle, which despite this from similarity in spelling and pronunciation predates Wordle by probably like 15 years.
Oh God, at least, yeah.
But so we talked about it, and he introduced it, and I identified that I was familiar with the concept, and he then went over the rules again and described how it works, and then I read the rules again, and then I promptly played my first one, and I took 26 guesses because I forgot that it is, the redder it gets, the closer it is. So the country at the time was, I think, Poland, and I was screwing around down with like Vanuatu and Tuvalu because I was like, it can't get any less red than this. Why am I not getting it? I was like, wait.
So basically, you had the rules explained to you several times, and then as soon as you started playing, you immediately forgot the rules.
Yes, I immediately inverted them, which I think is worse than forgetting.
Yeah, this is pretty much the experience that I've had with every sort of, like, obviously as a kid I played board games, you know, like board games that you play when you're a kid that existed in the 80s and the 90s. But like, now I have friends who play board games, and that's different, you know, like they play Carcassonne and Catan and stuff like that. And I fear these games. I really fear them. And no matter how many times people tell me, no, it's easy, it's fine, you'll enjoy it, we should give this a try, I'm like, but I don't think I want to, because I don't like not understanding what the fuck is going on. And that is generally my experience with games like this. Did you see accidental plug? It's not supposed to be a plug. Other word games are available, but the oatmeal has got a variety of games. We got some over Christmas and they're really good. But he has created a new game, and the cartoon that he drew to kind of advertise and introduce this game was just perfect, because it was basically like, hey, do you want to play a game with us where we all know what's going on and you don't? No, that sounds terrible. And that's sort of how I feel about board games.
Nice. Yeah, some of them do get quite convoluted. Some of them are an upfront investment in time and brain power.
But I feel like I should like these things. Like, I feel like I would like D&D. I feel I would enjoy that sort of, you know, I'm super duper nerdy and I like stories and I like competitions, but somehow I'm too terrified by the social situation of, let's learn this and play it for 4 hours, but you won't have a clue what's going on for at least 3 of those hours. And by the 4th hour, you'll have figured out enough to know that you are getting your ass kicked. And then the rest of the time, you'll just feel like shit because you can't do anything to avoid that. That's
what you need. I think you would adore a solid D&D campaign like game, but you would need to. I think you need to start. You need to. It all depends on the people, because it is such a people game.
I've got friends who are like super duper keen to do D&D, and so I must have told you before about my friend Joe. So Joe is the partner of one of my friends from school, who's, so actually I was at school with her brother. He was in my year at school. She's a couple of years younger than me, and I'm not going to name them by name because sometimes people get weird about that in a podcast, but I'm going to name Joe because we need to get Joe as a guest on this podcast. I've told you about him before. He is from Northumberland. He is into language. He works for Historic Scotland. He's got a lot of really super cool things to say about language, but he doesn't want to hear his voice on a podcast, basically.
Does he know that he doesn't have to listen?
Well, this is exactly what I told him. So yeah, I try hard not to listen to my own voice as much as I possibly can. And I told him that basically that's what he could come in, he could have a nice chat. I'd even give him a couple of beers. We would have a nice time, and you were cool. It would be good, and then it would go out into the ether, and no one would ever make him listen to it. But I haven't quite convinced him yet.
Okay.
But so within this family of friends who I love dearly and are wonderful, they have a nephew who's he's maybe about 14, and they're like, we have to get him into D&D. He would love it, and we all love it, so let's get a campaign on the go. And part of me really wants to say, can I do this too? But part of me is just a bit afraid of the board game phenomena.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing about D&D is if everyone's starting afresh, the rules are relatively, like, it's good because as the characters level up, there's more stuff to remember and more stuff you can do. But the basic rules, when you're starting a brand new thing, are actually fairly, they build upon each other.
Right. Okay.
So they do start, people will know how the mechanics of it a little bit better, but you don't do a whole lot
rather than a learning curve.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It's like a slope. There's like one step at the beginning, and then it's a nice gentle slope. But the step is not monumental.
This again sounds like when you're trying to tell me about a thing that you're also trying really hard not to spoil.
Yeah,
it's quite a skill.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah. Right, we're going to do some words.
Yes. First, so despite the fact that we have not recorded an episode in forever,
a long time,
and we've been on hiatus, and I did get people saying nice things about our little best of run through
nice.
January. We have 2 new Patreon supporters.
Well, that's just awesome.
So thanks very, very, very much to Michael and to Catherine for signing up as Patreon sponsors.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Catherine.
You guys are awesome.
Awesome.
Patreon.com/Lexitecture if anyone is interested in being like, what's all this? Right.
Cool.
Business concluded. Thanks to everyone for their patience as we took a little hiatus. And,
2022.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Will I go first?
I can go first if you...
I don't mind.
Okay. Well, so the word that I have today is lozenge.
Ooh.
And I was slightly hesitant about this because this word was at the heart of a massive epiphany and revelation for me as far as its meaning. Up until about a year and a bit ago, I knew exactly one meaning for this word and was absolutely unaware of any other usage or meaning. I had never heard it in any other context.
Oh, this is very intriguing.
And that is as like a cough drop, like a small hard candy type thing that in my brain, like it was always medicine. Like you wouldn't call like a Lifesaver or a Jolly Rancher a lozenge. To me, a lozenge was like a cough drop or some other sort of medicinal hard thing that you kind of just let dissolve in your mouth. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's interesting. I would not necessarily have felt the same about, like, I would have recognised that. In fact, you know what? I will shut up and let you talk about this because I feel like you might be about to say quite a lot of the things that I'm about to ask about. So for once in my life, I'm going to fucking listen.
Well, and so it was this big reveal to me, but I feel like I'm about to do one of those things where I'm like, and you'll never guess what this is. And 99% of people in the world will be like, uh-huh.
Dude, we are totally here for the 1%.
But as I continually have underscored to me, the answer to the question, am I the only one who, is almost always no,
never.
of course not.
Almost
No,
always never? That's not a thing.
Almost always never. Almost never always.
Oh, I really don't do well without much sleep. Yeah, my apologies. You should, like you get the little like explicit language sticker. There should be one for episodes that say, Amy has not slept very well. Proceed with caution.
Sleepy Scotswoman ahead. I might do up a little warning sign.
Sleepy doesn't really get across the danger of the situation.
Sleepless Scotswoman ahead?
Yeah, maybe.
I'll work on it. I'll workshop that.
So, lozenge revelation.
Yes, so that's throughout my adolescence and this whole time on this mortal plane, that's what lozenge meant to me. And then a while ago, pardon me if I'm sort of slightly hoarse because COVID is a dick, but a while ago I had this idea. I love flags. Flags are awesome. I love looking at flags. I love seeing what flags exist in different places and
how
obscure,
cool a
neat
word
ones.
is vexillology.
Yes, and that's also a great word. So I'm a big fan of flags. So one day I was bored, and I decided it would be a fun thing to do to sort of learn how to program an automated Twitter account that just tweeted random pictures of flags, because that would let me collect a whole bunch of them and learn a little bit about basic coding and stuff. And so I was looking at all these flags from around the world and collecting them.
Your boredom is very different to mine. But and there's nothing wrong with that.
Boy, the number of times I've heard that. So I'm not allowed to tell stories to my kids about what I did when I was bored in high school. So this is better than that. This stuff I'm allowed to tell them. But I found the flag of Bavaria.
Okay.
Which I had never seen before.
I am aware of the flag of Bavaria because I've been there. Also, Bayern Munich, the football team, I believe, have part of the Bayern flag on their crest, and beer.
Well, and I've been to Munich, and it's amazing. I remember it extremely fondly, and I really want to go back.
Oh, so
but
great.
The Bavarian flag, for people who don't know it, because you are absolutely not alone if you don't know what the flag is it's basically an entire field of blue and white diamond-shaped shapes. So pointy on two ends, like a square that's kind of been folded over a little bit and smushed down so that it's pointy.
Parallelograms, rhombuses, one of those.
Rhomboid parallelo diamonds. Yeah, one of those. Well, not one of them,
You're
many
a
of
rhomboid
those.
parallel diamond.
How dare you? Side note, just some of my favorite flags. If you're into flags and you're like, I wonder what these flags are that he's talking about.
Flags.
And if you haven't seen them, look up the flags of Sicily. Almost every flag involved in Malta, because they're all awesome. And one of my just out of left field, given its surroundings, is the Northern Territory in Australia. Its flag is like way out of left field, but I'm a big fan of it. Also, weirdly, the Hawaiian flag has a Union Jack on it, and is
that's right.
just the coolest looking thing. But it's very unexpected. Anyway, so I was reading a description of the Bavarian flag, and it talked about a field of blue and white lozenges.
Okay.
Which and that's the thing that I'm like, I had never heard it referred to as anything other than, I did not know it was a shape name. It's a shape. Now, you know that, I'm assuming.
I was aware
response.
of that. Lozenge shaped would be the only other context in which I would use the word lozenge. What I was going to say at the beginning, when I decided to shut up and listen and then fail miserably at that, I wouldn't necessarily call a Jolly Rancher a lozenge, because I don't know that it's lozenge shaped.
Well,
I might be wrong about this.
See, I wouldn't have called it a lozenge because it was candy and not medicine.
Okay,
medicinal.
I wouldn't have made that distinction, because lozenge shaped sort of held more semantic currency in my brain than lozenge medicine.
Yeah.
Although you're right, I mean, it would be unusual. Like, I'm thinking about those games where you have to get people to guess a word without saying the word itself.
Yeah.
You know, those are the sort of situations where you might find yourself describing something as lozenge shaped. I think it's quite an obscure usage. Generally speaking, it's a cough drop, and that's that. But yeah, I thought that a lozenge shaped thing was like a rectangle with curved ends.
Right.
Which is not the flag of Bavaria.
No.
And the rhomboid parallelodiamonds.
Yeah, so lozenge is, and I guess lozenge shaped, like it never occurred to me, and would have never occurred to me to really use that, I don't think, because I didn't know that they were called lozenges because of the shape they were.
Sure, okay.
So I wouldn't have used it as a shape reference, but from the way the OED describes lozenge as a shape, and I mean, if this makes this clearer to you, you're better than me, but it says a plain rectilineal figure, a plain rectilineal figure having 4 equal sides and 2 acute and 2 obtuse angles, a rhomb or diamond. In heraldry, such a figure used as a bearing less elongated than the fusil and placed with its longer axis vertical.
Oh, let's be absolutely clear that the language of heraldry is not on my radar.
It's not okay.
It's not okay. Nope, just no.
So I guess in heraldry they point up and down, but yeah, it's a square that's been turned so that the pointy ends are north, south, east, and west, and then put in a vise and then squished a little bit.
It's a parallelogram, dude.
Yeah, but I'm not there. I
love how you're determined to describe this thing without using its name.
But its name is the thing I didn't understand and had no idea about. So I don't. It's fine. It's a rectilineal parallelodiamond. There.
A rectilinear rhomboid parallelodiamond.
Rhomboid parallelodiamond.
This is fun.
Remember that brain hurting thing? Also, interestingly, they have a very specific alternate sense of lozenge in the OED, which is that a lozenge was apparently a lozenge-shaped shield upon which the arms of a spinster or widow are emblazoned.
Nice.
So that's weird. And it's weird for a number of reasons. It's weird for the obvious reason, but it's also weird that, like, you don't often see the OED doing the thing where the word itself is included in its own definition.
Yeah.
But there you have it. But the arms of a spinster or widow, like, are the arms of a spinster or widow different than a married or young woman's arms? I don't.
Do you mean like coat of arms? I mean, they again, we need a herald to tell us about this. Yeah. And I don't trust those guys.
But do spinsters and widows automatically get their own coat of arms?
That is a really interesting question. See, this is one of the things that also pisses me off about heraldry, because part of me wants to go, no space for that in my life, but it's also really, really interesting.
Like, I literally thought it was just arms, as in the things that connect your hands to your torso.
Oh, I see. Oh, no, I'm assuming, like, because it's a shield that it must have a coat of arms on it.
I guess.
What I'm thinking, because like usually a coat of arms, I'm going to assume would be patrilineal. You know, it would be usually men have a coat of arms. They have it for a family, but the name of a family comes from the man. So I suppose as a spinster, technically you're a part of the family that you were born into, but the sort of societal ideal is that you will marry into another family and thus take on their coat of arms. So when you reach the ripe old age of, I don't know, like 15 in the oldie days, and you've not been married, do you then get your own coat of arms to sort of say nobody wanted her?
I guess.
I mean,
listen,
that does seem like a bit of a dick move, but I mean, it's not like women have always come out of history well, is it?
Well, no. It's also, like, I want to be clear. It doesn't make sense that, like, my version doesn't make sense. It's not logical or rational in any way, but none of it makes sense. You know, we have found in our audience a cheese expert and a sport fishing expert, expert. There's got to be someone who knows heraldry.
An old Church Slavonic expert.
Old Church Slavonic expert.
I mean, that, like, really, who thought I Heart Old Church Slavonic was actually going to be something that would ever come back and
it'd be a real thing, but here we
celebrated. You know, I really, really heart OCS. Like, largely because of that. But yeah, the cheese email was so great.
Yeah, but maybe if there's a heraldry expert out there, they can shed some light on some of this stuff for us. That'd be pretty rad.
That would be super duper rad. Although there's probably a heraldic word for that that's, you know, doesn't sound like it means that, but does.
But it does. I guess I should talk about the history of the word. So, as a shape, it goes back in English to the mid 1300s. Okay. It became the cough drop usage showed up in like the mid 1500s.
Right.
So the cough drop is called that because of the shape it's in. Which is the thing I didn't know. Etymologically speaking, I had even with my extremely limited understanding of what the word meant, I had never given any thought to what the etymology was. And then as soon as I thought about it for a second, I went, nothing about this is familiar at all. Oh. So I don't know where this would have come from. So it's from the French side of the family. It has cognate words in Italian, Spanish, and Catalan. But beyond that, it's got one of these origin is disputed things. But it seems like the prevailing theory is, Adam Online and the OD go into this both, but to varying degrees. But the word is, as Adam Online puts it, pre-Roman Celtic, or some similar like Gaulish or Iberian. Ooh. Like some before the Romans took over Northern Europe.
So you know that as soon as you mention Gaulish or Iberian, I immediately go straight to Asterix.
Well, yeah.
You know Asterix,
yes. Yes, I do.
Good.
Yeah.
That was that was just one of those casual, this could be a deal breaker in our friendship moment. Just so you know.
Okay. Ooh, bullet dodged. It's good. But yeah, most of the precursors, so like there's this one tier of cognate words meaning the shape that we have described, the rhomboid parallelodiamond. The precursor to that in each of those cognate languages, so Italian, Spanish, French, Catalan, etc., means a flat stone, or in some cases specifically a tombstone.
Oh, okay.
And in Old French, rauze, R-A-U-Z-E, meaning was the word for roofing slate. So those slate tiles for roofing. But yeah, tombstone, flat stone, and I guess I think tombstone makes sense to me that would be sort of where it solidified or the roofing tiles, because then you get a shape. Like smooth flat stones come in all kinds of shapes. Yeah. And they're kind of rarely pointy in even ways, you know, like if they've been worn down to the point where they're smooth, they're usually rounded as well. Yeah. So yeah, like smooth stone and then to tombstone and roofing slate makes sense to me. And then from there, and it just sort of, there was a uniform shape that those things mostly were. And then that became that. And then the word for lozenge and the Bavarian flag and delicious, sweet, nourishing halls with which I am intimately familiar after the last 8 weeks of this ridiculous plague.
Yeah, so, that's super cool. Yeah, I it's properly I've just never thought about that word. Yeah. You know the way, like sometimes those are the most satisfying, where you're like, oh. And it's funny, it's a bit like, you know, sometimes we struggle to come up with which words are we going to come to, and I don't have a very scientific process for how I choose that. It tends to be words that I encounter in my life. It's a bit I love lamp. We've discussed this before, and I would never ever have chosen to look at that particular word, because it's like a furniture word. But the furniture words are worthy of exploration just as much as the ones that seem a bit kind of sparklier and cool. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool. Well, I decided it had been quite a long time since I had discussed a Scots word.
Yes.
So
Sweet.
I thought we would have a little bit Scots, and what I discovered is this isn't a Scots word. It is a Scots word, but I assumed that it was only a Scots word, naively and arrogantly of me, and that is not the case.
Ooh,
and the word, it's such a great word. I just love the way it sounds and the way it tastes in your mouth. And it's perhaps an unfortunate metaphor to use to talk about how this word tastes in your mouth, because the word is Oxter.
It's a fun word to say. I'm slightly afraid of what it means, given the setup there.
Is a fun word to say. And it had, we've vaguely discussed this when looking at Sweardle. If you want to make a word sound sweary, give it a short vowel sound.
Yes.
So the awe of Oxter, I think, gives it that almost sense of it being a bad word. It sounds quite harsh. And it means... I'm so excited by the fact that you have no idea what it means. Like, you couldn't make any sort of guess.
Not even one. I have no idea what's about to happen.
It means armpit.
Nope. Would never have guessed that.
And I'm about to tell you a beautiful story, because people wouldn't ever guess that. People who are not familiar with the word, it sounds particularly foreign when you say it to people who are not used to its usage in Scots. And the first thing that I discovered was, I assumed it was a Scots word. And quite often, my first stop is always the OED. And the OED is such a fantastic result. Like, I literally couldn't do this without it. But it doesn't always have Scots words in it, because there's a lot, there are a lot of Scots words, and it is, after all, a dictionary of English. However, Oxter is indeed included in the OED.
Nice.
And it dates from circa 1420 is the first citation given for it. And the definition they give is the armpit. Also, more generally, the underside of the upper arm, the fold of the arm when bent against the body, and the armhole of a coat or a jacket or any other sort of garment like that.
Oh.
And there are some really great spelling variations across the century. So the 1420 citation gives it oxteris, Oxteris. And then the next one, which is around about 1513, Dunbar, the wonderful Scots poem William Dunbar, Oxtar, Oxtar.
Okay.
And we got all these various variations until I particularly like Oxter with a CK at one point. This will keep it at least as warm as under your armpit, or Oxter as the Scots call it. That's from Swift to servant. And until we kind of get to the sort of 20th century, and it seems to have settled pretty well on Oxter, the noun Oxter. Now, there's also a verb form, which I wasn't particularly aware of Oxter as a verb, but to Oxter something is to support by your arm, or to walk arm in arm with, or to carry or pick something up under your arm.
I like that.
To embrace or to put your arm around. So there's a lovely citation from Robert Burns, where the priest he was oxtered, the clerk he was carried. That's from around about 1796. So a person can be oxtered, and I really like this sense of just sort of scooping somebody up under your arm.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good image.
Supporting them in that way. So the other thing that I'm always a bit wary when I look at Scots words, because it's much easier to find out about the etymology of English words, and I am a lazy human being, and so I wondered if I would actually have anything interesting to find out about this word. So again, I started at the OED. The OED has quite a lot of maybe sort of probably stuff going on about it.
Right.
But what's really, really interesting is this word is old. It's unbelievably, incredibly old. The OED thinks it's apparently a variant of an unattested Middle English reflex of Old English oxta, which is just O-X-T-A. A suffix form of the Germanic base of Old Saxon, ohasa, Old High German, ohasa, compared with the different suffixations of Old English oxen, O-X-N. But it's what you can definitely determine is it's unbelievably Germanic. You know, super duper whipper.
Right, yeah.
Very much a Germanic word. And this led me to wonder, what are the Germans calling armpits these days? And
yeah, that's a good wonder.
Yeah, I lots of Scots words are Germanic, and to the extent that sometimes you can guess at German words because they sound a bit like Scots words that you recognise. You know, I think that does happen quite often. Like, for example, the word kenne, which means to know in German. In Scots, you say, oh, do you ken this person? Do you know this person?
Right,
so
yeah.
The verb is used the same. The German word for armpit is Achsel, A-C-H-S-E-L.
Yeah, it's there.
And this really, really interested me. Etym Online didn't have anything to say about the word oxter. However, through reading about the sort of various Germanic variations, it led me to the word axle, A-X-L-E.
Oh.
Now, this is what Etym Online has to say about the word axle. An axle is a pole or pin upon which a wheel revolves, properly the round ends of the axle tree, which are inserted in the hubs or naves of the wheels. Now, that's from around about the 1630s. And in Middle English, they use the word axel, A-X-E-L, and also oxel, meaning axis. But we get very quickly to the Old English oxta, meaning armpit, which survives as dialectical oxter. Now, Etym Online says that pi, ax, A-K-S, gives us access. And so I went off to do a little bit of digging into this pi root, very excited, as I usually am when I find unexpected pi.
Yeah.
However, I couldn't find it in the Pokorny Index, and I couldn't find it in the Heritage Dictionary Index of pi roots. Right. So I drew a bit of a blank with that. I considered that perhaps the pi root AK, meaning axe, is there, but it did not appear to be etymologically related to the word axle. Right. However, here is an interesting thing about the word axle. If you look it up in the OED, you find that the first definition given, it's an obsolete usage dating from around about the year 1000, but the word axle meant shoulder. Oh. And so the oxter of the axle, that kind of makes sense to me. So we've got this X sound going on, and axles, which are shoulders, and scooping things up and putting them under your oxters. But what I was really, really delighted to find, for lots of reasons, I did me some Googling, and I discovered a wonderful article by the equally wonderful Stan Carey. I don't know if you're aware of Stan Carey. He is an Irishman, a writer, a linguist. He is a really, really cool person to follow on Twitter. He posts some very interesting things. And this is Sentence First, an Irishman's blog about the English language. And the title of this article is "Up to Your Oxters in Gaelic Expressions." Now, the phrase "up to your oxters," which Stan Carey points out, it can be used figuratively or literally. You could be up to your oxters in a river or in housework.
Right.
And this article was what alerted me to the fact that this word is used commonly in Ireland, it's used commonly in Scotland, in the north of England, and in the Isle of Man. So quite an interesting little cluster of linguistic interest. I watched a really, really cool documentary about 6 months or so ago about Ulster Scots. It was on the BBC, and I wasn't really aware that quite a lot of the Scots being spoken in the world is being spoken in Ulster in the north of Ireland, because of all sorts of interesting historical, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, when people move from one place to another.
Migration?
That's the very word. The very word that is currently not in my brain. Yeah, so so Ulster Scots is a really, really interesting topic to check out in its own right. And Carey notes that the etymology is pretty complex, but he says that the word is of a clearly Germanic cast.
Right.
There's lots of really beautiful citations that he's picked out because he's a real linguist, and he does things like he looks at the corpus of American English and all these brilliant resources that frankly I didn't really know existed and certainly don't know how to use well. But he has lots of really beautiful literary references. He mentions Seamus Heaney and Diana Gabaldon's novel Dragonfly in Amber, and it also contains the really brilliant word, which I had never ever heard before, Oxter cog. So Oxtercog. And
That's
Oxter
cool.
cog is the phrase that Seamus Heaney uses in his poem Vitruviana. And to Oxter cog something is to sort of half drag them or half carry them because they're drunk or they're being huckled along, or they're maybe injured, or something like that. So being Oxter cogged along is this sort of idea of putting something under your arm, but almost the idea that the person that you've put under your arm doesn't really want to go or isn't really kind of cooperating with that.
It's interesting that you went with the person under your arm, because my immediate thought was when you're trying to like carry someone or haul them away, you are under their arm.
Yeah, I
when
suppose
you're helping someone hobble along, you throw their arm over your shoulder, and then you're under their arm supporting them by their oxter.
Yeah. Who is oxtering in this situation? Is one the oxteree or the oxter?
The oxtercogger.
The oxter red or the oxteree?
I love that oxtercog exists and is a verb.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Nice.
I'll post this. I'll post a link to this article. It's really, really lovely, and there's lots of cool little sort of phrases. He talks about James Hogg talking about an oxter full. In other words, like as much as one can possibly put underneath one's armpit.
Right.
And then we have these senses to do with clothing, armholes, or oxter pockets, or oxter pouch, a breast pocket.
Right.
Things like that. So there's lots of he also discusses some really lovely idioms. So I like this a lot. To come with a crooked oxter means to bring somebody a gift.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, or to have your head under your oxter is to walk with a downcast head. Another one, he doesn't really talk about this, but legs up to your oxters. That's the sort of compliment one might give to a young lady around about these parts.
Right.
But yeah, it's a cool little article about this word. So
That's very neat.
I don't have much to tell you etymologically, but what I did find interesting is that this word that is so unfamiliar to you, a speaker of English, although not the type of English that is necessarily spoken around about these parts, it's actually very etymologically stable. Think about the Latin word for armpit.
I don't know the Latin word for armpit.
You will in a minute when I tell you. You'll go, of course, it's axilla.
Oh.
You have axillary glands and veins and things like that. So the axilla, which sounds very posh and fancy, relating to the armpit or shoulder, or the upper arm or the under part of an upper wing. These are all axillary things. These relate us back to axle, and axle vaguely gives us oxter. So while we think of it as a very strange, unusual sounding word in standard English, it's actually pretty much, Latin gave us this, and then French went this way with it. French is aisselle, in German, axle, English, we have the axle of the shoulder, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it in mechanical terms.
Yeah.
And into Scots and the Irish of County Mayo and various other parts of Ireland, and Northern Irish Scots and Isle of Man in the north of England, people are still talking about their oxters.
That's neat. I like that it... originally, I thought it was very interesting that it seemed to be... I mean, because I was jumping the gun and not actually... You hadn't gotten around to explaining it yet, but I was wondering if it was going to turn out to be one of those things that a different language or cousin has a specific word for a standalone word for something, where in English it's just in relation to something else. Like if there was a specific word for your fingertips that doesn't involve the word finger, because fingertips is just a
direction
related to the finger. It's just a portion of the finger, and the armpit is like related to the arm rather than having its own word.
Well, it has its own word.
But it does in fact come from a different word for arm, so it is sort of still related to a whole other understanding of how to describe arms and shoulders and such.
I also, because I'm a smart arse and because I like anatomy, I feel absolutely compelled to point out that it's the popliteal fossa, because whenever one talks about armpits, people generally ask, what about the back of the knee? And my niece, who's now an adult, when she was a tiny thing, she referred to it as your knee armpit. And so we often refer to it in our family as the knee armpit. And people do, like when I Googled this to check it, people also ask, what is the armpit of the knee called? So the armpit of the knee is the popliteal fossa. Fossa just means a space or a depression or an area without anything in it. And popliteus is a muscle within the joint of the knee. So the popliteal fossa or the oxter, two parts of your body that you didn't know were called these very odd words.
Wow. Well, that's just the bee's popliteal fossa. Doesn't scan quite as well. I'll workshop that too.
I feel like they went for knees for a reason.
I think so. There's something about I can't quite put my finger on, but yeah, I think you're probably right. Neat.
Cool.
I'm still geeking out about oxtercogging people.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
It's such a good word.
And it sounds so threatening too. Double short O. I'm going to oxtercog you. I don't know what that is, but I don't want it to happen to me.
I definitely didn't expect it to be a verb when you first said it.
I was really surprised by the verb. I've never heard it in my personal usage and personal hearing of the word. I've never heard it used as a verb. But it makes good sense. And it follows the pattern that we often see, that the citations, the noun is around about 1420 and the verb is around about 1796. So quite a significant time between first citations of the verb versus the noun. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that if one has an oxter, one can use it to oxter something.
Yeah.
And most people have too, so why not?
It's a plethora. Nifty. Very cool.
Oxter Lozenge.
Oxter Lozenge.
They sound like a band that I saw in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's a great sort of new wave revival band.
And that's it for another episode of Lexitecture. To get in touch with us about something you heard in this episode, you can email us at words@lexitecture.com. You can also follow along and talk to us at Lexitecture on Facebook and Twitter, and at Lexitecture Podcast on Instagram. For back episodes and the occasional blog post, visit us at lexitecture.com. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.